Man, I don't know about you, but it feels like every single day there's something huge happening around this Timberwolves team. And today is one of those days where we actually have two major stories that could say a lot about where this franchise is heading. The first one could end up shaping the future of one of the biggest names on this roster. We're talking about a situation that might completely change the direction of this team depending on how this season unfolds. It's one of those stories that starts quietly but could have massive consequences before we know it. And the second story involves one of the hardest working young players on this roster. Someone who's already earned the respect of Wolves fans with his toughness and defensive energy. Now, there's one specific adjustment that could completely change his role this season and possibly turn him into a much bigger piece of Minnesota's future. So, we've got two important stories to break down today, and trust me, both of them could have a real impact on what this team looks like throughout the season. Before we jump into it, if you're a real Timberwolves fan, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join us. I'm Henry, and our channel is still brand new. Our first goal is to reach 100 subscribers, and it'd be awesome to have the fans who truly believe in this team here with us from the very beginning. Let's get into today's news. Let's start with the biggest story of the day because this one could have major consequences for the Timberwolves over the next year. According to the latest reports, Rudy Gobert's future in Minnesota may depend almost entirely on how well he fits alongside the franchise's newest star, LaMelo Ball. That's a fascinating storyline because, if we're being honest, Rudy Gobert has been one of the biggest reasons this team has become one of the NBA's elite defensive groups since arriving in Minnesota back in 2022. He's been selected to 3 straight All-Defensive teams, won his 4th NBA Defensive Player of the Year award, and has completely transformed the Timberwolves' identity on that end of the floor. There's no denying his impact, but there's also no denying the reality. Minnesota still hasn't reached its ultimate goal. They've fallen short in the Western Conference Finals twice. And whenever a team gets that close without winning a championship, front offices eventually start asking difficult questions. Sometimes great players become trade candidates simply because organizations believe they need a different formula. And that's exactly why Gobert's name reportedly surfaced in trade conversations earlier this offseason. Minnesota ultimately chose to move on from Julius Randle and Nez Reid instead, while Gobert remained on the roster. But according to the report, that doesn't necessarily mean his long-term future is secure. In fact, this upcoming season may determine everything. The biggest variable is how Gobert meshes with LaMelo Ball. On paper, Ball changes the entire offensive identity of this team. He's one of the fastest playmakers in basketball, loves to push the pace, creates transition opportunities constantly, and thrives in an up-tempo system. Anthony Edwards also becomes even more dangerous when the game speeds up. The question is whether Gobert can fit naturally into that style. Rudy has never been known for running the floor at a high pace or playing in an offense built around constant transition opportunities. His value comes from elite rim protection, rebounding, screening, and anchoring the defense. If those strengths continue to complement what Ball and Anthony Edwards bring offensively, Minnesota could become one of the most balanced teams in the Western Conference. But if the fit feels awkward, if the offense struggles to maximize everyone's strengths, or if the Timberwolves once again come up short against teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs, then the conversation about Gobert's future could become very real next summer. There's another financial element here that's worth paying attention to. Gobert holds a $38 million player option for the 2027 through 2028 season. If he reaches next summer still under that contract structure, he would effectively become an expiring deal. And contracts like that are often attractive in the trade market because they offer flexibility for teams looking to reshape their roster. That's why league observers believe Minnesota could have an easier time moving him if they decide to go in another direction. Personally, I think this season is almost like an evaluation period. If Rudy Gobert continues playing at an elite defensive level, if LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards elevate the offense, if Chris Finch finds the right balance between pace and defense, and if Minnesota finally breaks through as a legitimate championship contender, then I don't see much reason to split this group apart. But if this experiment doesn't work the way everyone hopes, Gobert could once again become one of the biggest names on the trade market next offseason. Now, let's move to our second story because this one may not generate as many headlines nationally, but it could quietly become one of the biggest developments for Minnesota's rotation this season. Jaylen Clark appears to know exactly what he needs to improve if he wants to earn a much larger role under head coach Chris Finch. After reports emerged in June that Clark and the Timberwolves had agreed to a new 3-year, $10 million contract, he made it very clear through a message of gratitude and his off-season work that he understands the next step in his development. And that next step is simple. His three-point shooting. Everyone already knows what Jaylen Clark brings defensively. At 6'3", he consistently guards players much bigger than himself. He's become one of Minnesota's toughest point-of-attack defenders. Someone Chris Finch can trust whenever the team's defensive intensity starts slipping. He's constantly diving for loose balls, forcing steals, blocking jump shots, taking on the opponent's toughest perimeter assignment, doing all the little things that never fully show up in the box score but completely change the momentum of games. The numbers back that up. Last season, Clark averaged 13.3 minutes across 63 games while mostly playing near the back end of Finch's rotation. When Clark played more than 15 minutes, Minnesota posted an impressive 20-5 record. When he played fewer than 15 minutes, the Timberwolves were just 20-23. Opponents shot only 43.3% against him, the second-best defensive field goal percentage among players in Minnesota's regular rotation. That's elite defensive production. Late in the 2024 through 2025 season, Clark started earning consistent opportunities and made life extremely difficult for some of the NBA's biggest stars. He defended Devin Booker extremely well in Phoenix. He held Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to just one made shot in 7 attempts when matched up against him, and he even scored a career-high 17 points against the Houston Rockets. That stretch was so impressive that the Timberwolves converted his original two-way contract. Signed after he entered the league in 2023 while recovering from the Achilles injury he suffered at UCLA, into a fully guaranteed standard NBA contract. Even more encouraging, during the 2024 through 2025 season, Clark shot an outstanding 43.1% from 3 over 40 games, including 4 starts. He only attempted 1.3 threes per game, but he made enough of them to force defenses to respect him. Unfortunately, that shot disappeared last season. His three-point percentage dropped to 32.7% while averaging 1.5 attempts per game. That decline became a real issue because defenders started sagging off him, allowing them to send extra help toward Anthony Edwards and other scorers. Instead of taking open catch-and-shoot opportunities, Clark often attacked the rim, trying to draw contact. The problem? He converted only 65.7% of his free throws. That's why his floor spacing became a genuine offensive concern, despite everything he continued doing defensively. The encouraging part is that Clark appears fully aware of it. Throughout this summer, he's been posting videos showing himself working extensively on catch-and-shoot three-pointers, making it obvious that improving his outside shot has become his top priority. And honestly, if he gets that jumper back to somewhere around 36 to 40%, everything changes. Chris Finch enters this season with a guard-heavy roster after the departures of Julius Randle and Nez Reid and the arrival of LaMelo Ball. Finch has even said he doesn't necessarily view Jaden McDaniels as the team's starting power forward this season. That creates some fascinating lineup possibilities. Josh Green and Terrence Shannon Jr. are currently viewed as logical candidates for larger offensive roles. But if Jaylen Clark becomes a reliable shooter again, he suddenly fits beautifully next to LaMelo Ball. Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert. Clark could become Minnesota's primary point-of-attack defender every single possession, allowing Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball to conserve more energy offensively while giving Jaden McDaniels more freedom to help around the rim. Defensively, that lineup could be incredibly disruptive. Offensively, McDaniels could continue operating in a role similar to what he's already comfortable with, while Clark focuses on spacing the floor as an off-ball option. Everything comes back to one thing: the three-point shot. He doesn't need to become Dante DiVincenzo. He simply needs to knock down enough open looks to force opposing defenses to respect him instead of leaving him completely unguarded. To crowd Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, if he accomplishes that, I really believe Jaylen Clark could become one of the biggest surprise stories of the Timberwolves season and earn a much larger role than many people expect. When you step back and look at these two stories together, it's hard not to feel like they represent two completely different sides of where this franchise is right now. On one side, you have a proven veteran like Rudy Gobert, whose future with the Timberwolves suddenly doesn't feel as untouchable as it once did. He's already established himself as one of the greatest defensive players of his generation, but this league moves fast. Every season is another evaluation, and now he'll have to prove that his game fits alongside LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards while helping Minnesota finally get over the hump. On the other side, you have Jaylen Clark, a young player fighting for every minute he earns. Nobody questions his effort, toughness, or defensive mentality. The only question is whether he can become enough of an offensive threat to force Chris Finch to keep him on the floor in bigger moments. And in a way, those two stories are connected. This season is going to be all about fit. Can the veterans and the young players complement each other? Can LaMelo Ball elevate the offense without sacrificing the defensive identity that has made Minnesota one of the toughest teams in the Western Conference? Can Anthony Edwards continue his rise into true superstardom while balancing a new-look roster? Can Rudy Gobert continue anchoring the defense at an elite level? Can Jaden McDaniels take another step? Can Jaylen Clark earn a bigger role? Those are the questions that are going to define this season. The Western Conference certainly isn't getting any easier either. Teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs are expected to be right in the middle of the championship conversation, which means Minnesota can't afford to stand still. Every rotation decision, every lineup adjustment, and every player's development could end up making the difference between another deep playoff run and finally reaching the NBA Finals. As Timberwolves fans, that's what makes this season so exciting. There's pressure, there's uncertainty, but there's also genuine reason for optimism. This roster still has elite talent, one of the best young superstars in Anthony Edwards, an exciting new playmaker in LaMelo Ball, an elite defensive anchor in Rudy Gobert, and several young players, including Jaylen Clark, who still have room to grow. Now, it's up to Chris Finch and this group to prove they can put all the pieces together when it matters most. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you believe Rudy Gobert will still be a Timberwolf after this season? Or do you think this could be his final year in Minnesota? And how big of a role do you see Jaylen Clark playing if his three-point shot improves? Drop your thoughts down in the comments because I read every single one. And I genuinely enjoy seeing what this community thinks about these big stories. I always like hearing different opinions, and this is the best place for Timberwolves fans to have those conversations together. If you enjoyed today's update, don't forget to leave a like because it really helps the channel grow. And if you're a true Timberwolves fan who wants honest, passionate coverage of this team every single day, make sure you subscribe to Timberwolves Daily News. Our channel is still brand new, and our first goal is to reach 100 subscribers. It would mean a lot to have you here with us from the very beginning, as we build this community of dedicated Wolves fans together. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate every single one of you for spending a few minutes of your day here with me. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next Timberwolves Daily News update.